The other thing is pull up your chat, and I just want to say welcome to everybody. Again, my name is Kathy Markov, and we're going to be talking about something so important today. This is how to keep your job. So again, I'm having some technical issues. Sorry. Can't seem to make this respond to me. Okay. There we go. I got it. Okay. So today we're going to talk about something really important, which is how to keep your job. And this day and age, as we know, unemployment is high. And so the challenge is, how is it that you can really get the right job, keep your job? You need to get some really good advice. My advice to you is go to America's Job Center and really find a job in an industry that is growing. So I have a business, a management consulting business, and I have clients all up and down the Central Coast. The good news is that most of my companies have not been dramatically impacted by the COVID situation. Those in hospitality have, for obvious reasons, but many of them in high tech, in manufacturing, in business services, they were hit a little bit, they're coming back. It's very important that you find a job in a growing industry, even in this economy, or a stable industry, even in this economy. So you need to do some work on the labor market and those types of things. Working with America's Job Center is really important to get that kind of information. So this class is not a class on that. This is once you have chosen the job and you've got the job, how do you keep the job? And I'm going to tell you that a year ago, when unemployment was under 5%, I think it was 3 or 4% here in Santa Barbara County. I know I also have lots of business up in San Luis Obispo, and it was equally as low. Employers are searching. They cannot find enough trained workers. And so if someone gets on board and they're not really a good fit, they're reluctant to let people go. But that is not the case now. The case now is that it is an employer's market, and we as employees need to be very good at, one, making sure we pick a job that fits us. Two, it would be very good that you meet the needs of the employer. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. So, technical issues again. So what are we doing here today? This is what we want to do. That is not what I want. By the end of this particular workshop, we want you to understand the importance of projecting a professional persona and being able to set professional boundaries at work. We want you to learn how to communicate professionally. And this is really key. We live in a very casual society. And so it's easy to think that we're at work and, hey, you know, I can just hang out with my boss, use whatever language I might at home. But we need to remember that at work, it's a formal experience. And so we need to communicate professionally. Professional isn't in a suit and tie. Professional is according to the industry. Maybe you work for a moving company. So what does professionalism mean there? Maybe you are a personal trainer. What does professionalism mean within that? Maybe you work for a law firm or a bank. You can see the idea of professional may be different, but what's important is that you learn to communicate in a professional way for the setting that you're in. So we're going to talk about some of these things. Sorry, I'm having technical issues. So we are going to use Zoom a little bit. So I think you've all got your Zoom up. And in there, I was hopeful that maybe Peter would be able to share the handouts, but I'm not sure that they're there. So what I would say to you is that I have a handout that summarizes the main points of what we're talking about today, and they will be posted on the site for America's Job Center. So I welcome you to take a look at that when we're done here. So let's, again, open up your chat And I want you to do this. We're going to do something that's called a chat storm. And so I want you to put a couple of things into the chat. And don't press enter until I tell you. So I'll give you about a minute or a minute and a half to do this. But what do you hope to get out of this class? And one thing you would think that employers are looking for in an employee. So take a couple minutes, don't press enter. This is called a chat storm. But what I would like you to do again, in your chat, write down these two things, what you hope to get out of the class, and one thing you think employers are looking for in an employee. Say, don't hold off on hitting it yet. About maybe 20 seconds more. Okay, get ready. Hit enter. Rosie, great. So you are a workforce professional, so you want to be able to teach your clients. That's great. Yeah, looking for a reliable team. Yeah, John, great. I'm glad that you're looking for ways to keep your job and projecting a professional persona. I love that because you're absolutely right about that. So these are the things that we're going to be talking about today. And again, I want to make sure that you can see I have the slideshow. And that second question was really important. What do you think employers are looking for? Because what I want to do today is really get in the mind of the employer, you know, the importance of perspective. Many times as an employee, we're just looking at things from our point of view. But we need to get behind what I sometimes call the human resource curtain and understand how the leaders in the organization are looking at their team and individuals in their team. Are they a culture fit? Are they performing to the level that they want? What kind of potential do people have within the organization? And how can they cultivate that? So I love this cartoon. Gary Larson, I just love him. I don't know, he's kind of old, maybe in the 80s and the 90s, but he's still hilarious and relevant here. So it says, good heavens, Pablo. This is the Picasso family, right? And F in art. Well, I'm just going down there to the school myself to meet this teacher face to face. So of course, Picasso is drawing these faces with all the parts of the face in the wrong place, but it's perspective, right? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. So let me tell you a couple of cases of things gone wrong, right? And I have changed the specifics of these cases, but these are from my experience as an HR director. There was a woman, and she was not doing well in her job. And her supervisor was talking to her about it. And it was kind of curious because every time the supervisor would sit down and talk with her, all of a sudden she would have some kind of accident in the office. She would fall. She hurt her wrist. She hurt her knee. And this was always the pattern. The boss would talk to her, and then a little while later, she would fall down the stairs, supposedly. No one ever saw her hurt herself, but this was the thing that she would say. So there was a time when her boss talked to her. It was on a Tuesday. And it was a very serious conversation. It was one of those conversations that was kind of like, you've got to get it together. This is your last chance. And if you don't get it together, we're going to let you go. Well, over the weekend, so it was a Tuesday, now it's like Sunday, she writes her boss and says, you know, Tuesday, I fell down the stairs, the back stairs, and my knee hurts. And so the supervisor came to me as the HR director and said, what do I do? I said, well, she needs to fill in a report and go to the med stop, the place that we had where if employees got hurt, and have her knee checked out. So she comes into work on Monday. She's wearing high heels, but she's claiming that her knee hurts. She's walking fine. She is, but she's in high heels. She fills out the report, and lo and behold, she claims that she fell down the stairs less than half an hour before she had this meeting with her boss. So I don't know, we don't know what's going on, because you would think if you fell down and then you meet with your boss, you would tell your boss, but she did not. So we asked her to leave on a Monday morning. She comes back on Wednesday. So she leaves, we don't hear from her. We check in on Tuesday, where are you? She says, I can't get into the med stop. I'll come in when I can. So she comes in on Wednesday in a full-on leg brace, limping. Oh, she's in such pain. So this was very curious to us, because there was this pattern of not performing, being requested by her supervisor in writing to do so, and then having an injury. So we hired on legal counsel, we hired what they call, an investigator to do what they call SBROSA. SBROSA, it's legal investigation work where we followed her around after work and on the weekends. Now, we are legally obliged to do that, because when she fell, now she's on our workers' comp. So she's costing us a lot of money. It was like the third workers' comp claim after she had a meeting with her boss. What do we find out? Over the weekend, she's going shopping with her friends. She's out dancing with her boyfriend on the weekend. She is taking her kids to the water park. We have film of this. And so on Monday morning, I called the attorney, and we let her go. And she was very unhappy. But the reason why we let her go, it's called workers' comp fraud. So this is important that we start to know that, when you agree to work for someone, it's serious. You work for them, and they take on a responsibility for your well-being. And if you get hurt at work, your employer is responsible for it, but it has to be legitimate. Another story. There was a guy, and he was the vice president of a nonprofit organization. He was being groomed to become the president of the organization. When the board of directors went out to look for a new president of the organization, they picked somebody else. So this guy, let's just say his name is John. John was unhappy, and he let everybody know it. Now, this is a leader of the organization. He's still the vice president, but he talked to everybody about how horrible the board was and how bad the new guy was and this, that, the other thing. And this went on for about 6 months. Finally, and I was not the person who did this, but the president went to the vice president and asked the the new president went to HR and asked HR, what could we do to let this person go? So the guy who was very upset for not getting the job and couldn't manage his own attitude and move beyond it was given a severance package, basically paid to and asked to leave the organization without any kind of legal action. Well, this person was, they left obviously, but they were very unhappy and continued to badmouth the organization. One more story. And this happened in my area of responsibility. I had a staff of about 15. And I had a receptionist, and I had some other staff. The reception desk had to be manned. There had to be somebody at the reception desk at all times. And so as staff, we would rotate through that role, myself included, but it was on a schedule. It happened once every 2 weeks or less, meaning that it could be every 3 weeks, but depending on how many people we had, if people are on vacation, that kind of thing. But every 2 weeks, you were expected at noon to recover the receptionist. Now, you could negotiate with the receptionist a different time. So we had this employee who was you know, a B player, not fantastic, but they were constantly asking the receptionist if they could wait until 1. Now, the receptionist 100% had to leave by 1 o'clock, no later than 1 o'clock. And the reason why was because I couldn't have them working more than 5 hours without taking a lunch break. Those are the labor law rules. And everybody was able to do this except this one employee. And this employee would negotiate with the receptionist to be able to come at 1 o'clock. But repeatedly, they would come in 10, 15, half an hour late. Sometimes they'd show up at 1:30. And they would say things like, oh, I'm so sorry. I worked out and I had to take a shower. Or I'm so sorry. I just ran to the grocery store. I had to take my groceries to back home. We had 2 large refrigerators in the break room. We had a grocery store across the street. I would run to the grocery store and put my groceries in the work refrigerator because I did not have enough time to go home to put them in, and I was the boss. So these were the kind of excuses that we got. And, you know, the receptionist was trying to be very accommodating until it really became a problem. And I was constantly paying the receptionist what they call a penalty. I had to pay the receptionist those extra minutes that this other person was late. And it became an issue. We sat down and talked with the person. We talked with them once. We talked with them twice. The third time we talked to them, we let them go. To this day, you know, I see the person sometimes in my professional network and they just hate me. But the question I have for you, as the boss, could you blame me? This was creating a problem amongst everyone on the team. This was not just a little thing, oh, ha, 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 I'm a few minutes late, I had to, you know, no. She pushed it to the absolute limit, and I was getting in financial issues because I was having to pay penalties for the receptionist who couldn't go to lunch on time. And the receptionist was upset because she wanted actually to have her lunch at noon. She was doing this person a favor, but they didn't appreciate it. So of course their relationship was horrible. So anyway, I'm telling you these cases because what's really important is to get behind that HR curtain and to try to look at things through the eyes of the employer. So let's move on here because this is really what we're trying to do here. Let's look at the top 7 reasons why people get fired. This is from Inc. magazine. Blundering on social media. Getting negative. Acting as a lone wolf. This means, you know, you're not listening to anybody, you're just going off and doing your own thing. And in a lot of ways, that's what that last case study was. This person didn't care that they were being disrespectful to the receptionist, insubordinate by not abiding by the rules that everybody else was, myself included. Acting like a lone wolf. It doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want. Being late repeatedly. It's not 5 minutes here and there. But if you're constantly late, that's a problem at work. Disobeying your boss. It's called insubordination. And I train managers and supervisors. And for me, one of the biggest things that I train on is to recognize insubordination and to move beyond it. And sometimes that includes letting people go. You should not be disobeying your boss. Giving minimum effort, or just putting in the minimum amount of work, or using inappropriate behavior or language. And I know we live in a society now where we use profanity very commonly. You know, go back and watch some movies from 20 years ago. You don't see the F-bomb everywhere. We hear it everywhere now. It's in the music lyrics and we don't think anything of it. But at work, it stands out. So I have one of my clients, and there was a supervisor of a division who in an email used the F word with the president of the company. The president of the company immediately called the HR director and said, fire that person immediately. And the HR director knew that this person was actually a really, really good worker and did not want to let them go, and had to actually talk the president of the company off the ledge and agreed to do some training on what is appropriate at work and protecting your professional reputation. Now, I did a workshop on that 2 weeks ago, but using inappropriate language or behaving in an inappropriate manner can get you fired. And this day and age, you know, if we talk about sexual harassment, discrimination, bullying, all of those things, employers are very keen and sensitive to that now, and people will be let go without question. So this is important, that when we're at work, we realize it's more of a formal engagement with people, and we need to act professional according to the industry that we're in. So what are the top ways to manage up? Manage up mean, how do you impress your boss? You want to communicate your priorities and seek feedback. This is really important, that you have excellent communication with the person that you report to. This is key. You anticipate the needs of your boss, right? I've had a lot of different people working for me. The best person I ever worked for was an assistant that I had, and she anticipated my needs. She saw where I struggled, and I hired her because she had an opposite skill set, and she filled in my gaps. It was a brilliant working relationship, but she anticipated my needs. She would always say, I'm here to make you look good. Now, she was really a stellar employee, and not all of us are like that, nor do we all feel the same way about a boss. I mean, this was a mutually respectful relationship, but anticipate your boss's needs. Understand what makes your boss tick. Spend a lot of time reflecting on, who is my boss? How does my boss like me to communicate with them? Now, this is not a class in communication, but there are different communication styles. And how can you pick up those clues? Maybe you're somebody who likes to talk and talk and talk, and your boss is more to the bottom line. Or maybe you're a bottom line person, but your boss wants to sit and gab a little bit. Maybe your boss is a data hound and wants tons and tons of data. You know, you figure out what they want and give it to them, right? This is how you ensure that you are a valuable player and you retain your job. You want to know the right way to discuss problems with your boss. Now, a general rule is people don't like complainers, and they don't like people just pointing out everything that's wrong. They want people who come with solutions. But that's kind of the tip of the iceberg of that, right? So, okay, if you are coming up with solutions, when's the right time? What's the right way? Maybe it's not talking to them. Maybe it's writing up a report. Maybe it's about coming up with a plan to solve it, right? How does your boss want you to talk to them about problems that surface? Now, the best employees are those that can see a problem coming that the boss can't, and knows how to discuss it with the boss to make sure that problem doesn't happen. That's the goal here, but how you present it and discuss it is really key. And finally, you want to really learn how to be a source of help for your boss. This is really important too. I mean, that's why you were hired. And I know we get, again, very, very familiar in our workplaces. We spend so much time at work, but it still is formal. And we're really, your boss is looking to you to be a problem solver and a source of help for them. So these are ways to keep your job. Oops. Here we go. So if you have the expectation that you're going to get the right job and keep it, then you have a responsibility to behave in a manner that is consistent within the organizational culture, which is also part of, you know, the industry, but also that you are meeting the expectations of your boss and the powers that be in that organization. So this is really key. This takes work on your part. So you need to do some self-reflection and become self-aware. Self-awareness is just a crucial skill for people who, well, for anything in life, but also for people at work. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And find teams and people that appreciate your strengths, but help fill in your weaknesses. Focusing constantly on your weaknesses doesn't make you any stronger, right? It's important to know what your strengths are. And I can share a couple of stories. I mean, I'll be honest. I've been fired. I've been fired twice. And twice because I wasn't quite self-aware enough. The first job, to be honest with you, I used to teach sailing and clean sailboats at the Santa Barbara Harbor. Now, the teaching sailing part was great, but I only did that once or twice a week. The rest of the times I was hanging off the boats, getting the barnacles off and cleaning up the boats. I was terrible at that. But I was young and I thought I can do anything, right? It was not a good fit for me, right? So this is important. I need to be more self-aware. I would have been better in a different work environment than hanging off the side of boats, getting barnacles off. That's not me. So, it was just a summer job. It didn't matter. But I was fired from a professional job as well. And I think it's important to be able to talk about that and to think about that. So I was very successful in a role that I played in an organization. I got a promotion. I was promoted to work for the president of this organization. Now, this person was a notoriously difficult boss, and I had seen other colleagues really struggle with this person. But my ego told me, oh, well, you'll be different, Kathy. You'll be able to do it. Well, that was my big mistake. So I had this 7-year success record in this organization and then worked for this truly difficult boss. And honestly, I didn't deal with it well. And I know that my behavior was not what it should have been. And this only upon reflection and self-awareness. Here's the good news. Yes, I was asked to leave the organization, but it caused me to do this kind of self-reflection and become more self-aware. And now I have found work that is truly empowering. I am so happy. I love everything that I do. And I'm even making more money. I'm happier. Everything is better now. But it took a kind of, I guess, for me, get rid of that ego and realize this is not the right fit for me. This is not the right boss for me. This is not the right work for me. So this is important. Becoming self-aware is a key to your happiness in life, but also at work. Nobody is perfect. And when you get an interview, often they ask you, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? This is a question that's aiming at, are you self-aware? And you better have really good answers for that. What are you good at? Where are your weaknesses? And then your job is to find a job in a stable or growing industry that plays to your strengths. We all have opportunities to learn, but you want to have a baseline of you've picked the right kind of job. And then when you're going through an interview, you need to remember you are checking out that organization as much as they're checking you out. Is this a person I could work for? Could I feel like I want to help them, even when times get bad? That my assistant, her name was Anne, we didn't always get along. Yeah, we had some arguments, disagreements, times of challenge, but at the end of the day, we had mutual respect for one another. And so we could move through those times and grow and develop together to create success at the workplace. And that's what you want to do. When you're interviewing, you want to see, could I be partner with this boss? Would I care about their success enough to do what they want me to do, even if I don't really want to do it? Could I make them look good and thereby growing my career? But it takes some self-awareness, which is self-reflection, right? So let's look at this a little bit more. 83% of people in high self-awareness are top performers. Only 2% of the bottom performers are high in self-awareness. So there's really something in it for you to take the time to reflect. What do you like to do? What are your strengths? This, again, go to the America's Job Center of California. They can direct you to some self-assessments. You need to know your communication style. What's your conflict style? I welcome you to stay in contact with me after this if you like. I have some inventories on things like that, and I would be happy to share those with you. But becoming self-aware is really key. Here's the return on investment of self-awareness, right? You develop compassion for others. You realize, well, this is how I am, but other people are different. That's a good thing, because when we're very myopic and we think, oh, everything has to be my way, this is when we can run into some challenges. This is where your emotional intelligence gets better when we are self-aware. Understand what you like and you don't like in different situations. By becoming self-aware, it puts you in the driver's seat. Instead of just reacting to everything, right? You can respond to different events and different kinds of people so that you're not regretting what you've done because you just jump to conclusions. You can respond. That doesn't mean that you don't share when this isn't the way you would approach it or you're unhappy about something, but we want to do it in a professional way where we remain in the driver's seat here, right? So when you become self-aware, it gives you more power. And this is really key to keep a job, is to be in that responsive mode rather than reactive mode. And it might mean stopping yourself from doing things you might do just a knee-jerk reaction. But we get there by becoming self-aware and developing that emotional intelligence. So here are things we can do to set ourselves up for success. Become more self-aware. Develop your emotional intelligence. Now, again, this is not a class on emotional intelligence, but a lot has been written on this. And there are some very straightforward little books that you can get on it. You can look it up on the internet. You can probably take some free assessments. But understanding what emotional intelligence is and why it's important to develop. But the basis of that is self-awareness. And employ the platinum rule. So we talk about the golden rule a lot, but the platinum rule, especially this day and age, is do unto others as they would like to have you do unto them. So it's not just treating everybody the way you wanted to be treated, because there are different kinds of people. There are different communication styles, different conflict styles, different perspectives. And in really innovative, really successful organizations, they appreciate not only the diversity of our ethnicity or our race or skin color or gender, they truly appreciate and respect the different perspectives that we bring in. But that means that we also are self-aware and know that just because this is how I see it, somebody else may see it differently. And how am I going to interact with that person? The way they would like to be treated. This is key. And when we talk about transgressions at work that might be inappropriate behavior, sometimes that's because we hadn't thought how the other person would take it or how the other person would think about it. So the platinum rule is really key to being successful. People are watching one another at work all the time. Bad behavior gives other people permission to have bad behavior. You're constantly late, but you're the top performer, and now everybody thinks they can come late. Or like that woman I told you about who got fired for constantly letting down the receptionist. It was creating problems. Everybody else said, how come I can't do that? How come I can't go work out at lunch? And so as the boss, there was pressure on me to say, I don't like to fire anybody. I don't want to do this, but I can't let this behavior continue. We've talked about it 3 times. This is it. You're done, because it's impacting the whole team, because people are watching each other all the time. So if you really want to get ahead in your career, you got to know the code of conduct. What's the mission, vision, values, and code of conduct? Code of conduct is usually written in the employee handbook. And these are the basis for why people might be terminated for cause. And you want to be sure that you understand that and you adhere to that. And here are also some simple rules. Always be honest, even if you make a mistake, right? Come clean. Be vulnerable a little bit and be honest. People would much prefer to have someone honest that made a mistake than someone that made a mistake and was dishonest about it. So honesty is always best in work and in life. Create and sustain a friendly and inclusive work environment. You know, how you show up is really important. I do teach those classes in sexual harassment, and with everything that's going on, you know, with the Me Too movement and everything, people are not sure how to show up. I always appreciate it when people ask, you know, and that's how you can be with everybody. What can I call you? And this is important. Always call people by the name that they ask you to call them. Don't make up pet names for people. Be respectful. Be honest when you don't know something. But you need to create and sustain that friendly and inclusive work environment. And part of that is about being a little humble. Maybe you don't know everything about what someone may visually present. Ask some questions and be respectful. Understand that you have an obligation to disclose any problems or potential conflicts of interest. So this is really important, and this gets into that code of conduct. So this is key. There's a difference between performance issues and conduct issues, right? So of course I have Michael Scott here from The Office, and I don't know if all of you are familiar with The Office, but it is, you know, funny. He has this thing, the world's best boss. I mean, he thinks he's just perfect. Now, if we were to look at his personnel file, maybe he is on budget and makes his sales goals and everything's great, but he's got some conduct issues. So this is important to distinguish this. People can lose their job because they didn't perform well, or they could perform really well, but they could have some conduct issues. They are telling dirty jokes around the office. They're offending people right and left. They made a pass at somebody. They have nicknames for other people. They do any of the things that you see on The Office, right? These are conduct issues. So either one of them are grounds for dismissal. This is why, again, you need to know what is your job description. Make sure that is the guiding document for you to make sure you're doing that, but also watch your behavior. How are you interacting with other people? People, I think, can be very forgiving if they see some self-awareness, some improvement. Right? It's not always easy to do, to own up to making mistakes, but it is really key. So keep that in mind. It's not just making the performance mark, but it's also how you show up. So choices lead to habits. Habits become talents. Talents are labeled gifts. You're not born this way, you get this way. This is a practice of becoming more and more self-aware and more talented, skilled, and professional in your workplace. And one of the things I'm going to say, if you are a person at the moment who's unemployed, this is a great time to find a way to maybe get some kind of certification. So I will say that I'm in private practice. I have a lot of clients. This has been a very slow year for me. Right? My business is about a third of what it used to be. I'm so grateful to the Workforce Development Board for continuing to work with me, but I had hundreds of clients and only about a third of them are in a position to use my skills at the moment. So I've gotten 3 different certifications. I've become SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management certified. I become certified in distance education and in another virtual team building process. So this is important to think about. How can you develop yourself so that you become more self-aware, but also more skilled and talented and have more credentials behind your name? It's really key. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So what kinds of habits, even in a period of unemployment, can you develop that you would be able to carry on into the workplace? And by the way, on another thing, if you're looking for work right now, employers are going to want to know what you did with this time. This is a great time to do some volunteer work. You know, say, oh, I sat around and I watched the Tiger King and living big in a tiny house for 3 months while I was looking for a job. No, do some volunteer work. This also builds your network. Get out there and develop those habits of success even when you're not clocking into a job every day. Why do people do wrong? Why do people find themselves getting fired? You know, maybe there's a character flaw. Maybe they don't have the right information. Maybe they're not clear on the expectations of the job, right? Maybe they made a judgment. I'll tell you, I know one of the things that went wrong is that boss, when I got the promotion that was so hard to work for, I started off really good, but I lost respect for them. They were not ethical. And I found it difficult to follow the directions they were giving me because I had made a judgment on their ethics. To be honest, I'm glad that I was asked to leave that job. The person who replaced me was actually in a lawsuit related to the things that boss asked them to do. So my judgments weren't wrong, right? But it did get me fired. But that's important. What might have been better is if I had realized my mistake and left on my own accord. So that's important. If you find you can't work for that boss, be self-aware enough to know, okay, it's time for me to move on, right? People also do wrong because they feel pressure. So this is, again, have that good relationship with your boss. So any kind of pressure is the right kind of pressure. You're not being pressured from other people in the workplace or customers to do something that's not right. So have that good relationship with your boss to support you. So how do you do the right thing? Number one, communicate. Number two, learn the rules of success in that organization. This includes understanding and meeting your boss's needs and wants. Ask for guidance when you need it. Show integrity. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And be genuinely interested in others and give them the support that they need. Show interest in your coworkers and your boss, in the work that they're doing. What can you learn? And align your actions with your words. So be a good partner to your boss and coworkers. Communicate professionally. Set professional boundaries. Project professionalism in your sphere of influence. Sphere of influence, it's not just you and your boss or you and your team, but it's any time you go to the break room, you interact with people on other teams, you're sending emails throughout the organization. What's your sphere of influence, right? I had a coworker who was in the finance department, and they interacted not only with me, but all of my peers, all of the people above me in the organization. And this person had a very bad attitude. We're going to talk about attitude in a minute. They actually lost their job, not because of performance, but because no one could work with them. And they kept saying, well, my boss is happy with me. Yeah, but everybody else in the organization's going crazy with you, because their sphere of influence was very large. They touched every department in the company, and they were a challenge to work with. So they lost their job. So it's not just your direct line of reporting, it's your sphere of influence. And identify what you have to give to your employer. People will eventually forget what you did. They will eventually forget what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And this is really important. Are you leaving people with a positive feeling, or are you making people walk away scratching their heads, right? Or being concerned about what you're going to do? Or are you rallying people around you to get back at the boss for doing something? I have a client, and the organization was not running it according to the time and attendance rules, like what I was talking about, people taking lunches on time. They had to change it. And there were so many employees that were so unhappy, they began to beat up on the HR director. And this isn't right, right? So you want to make people feel good, and especially the most important people in the organization, which are the leaders, to keep your job. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries. Boundaries are where you end and other people begin. And this is an area of conduct that can create problems for people. And it's not just any kind of love interest, attraction. Those happen at work. It's reality. It has to be managed well. But how close are you getting with people? This is what I tell people all the time. It's nice to be friendly at work, but don't go to work looking for your best friends. Get a life, get friends outside of work, because these boundary issues can create problems for people. And you don't know what the future of your career is. I have a colleague, her name is Danielle, and she used to work for a woman named Susan. And then Danielle was promoted to Susan's level. And then Danielle moved to a different organization. And then Danielle hired Susan. Now Susan is working for Danielle. But they were great friends. They'd gone to each other's weddings. They knew each other's kids. Susan now, who used to be Danielle's boss, felt entitled and didn't follow what Danielle asked her to do. She was being insubordinate. And Danielle had a really hard time managing Susan because they were friends. This is a boundary issue, and it creates a number of issues for people. So be careful. I always say, get a life, have some outside interests, outside friends. Be friendly at work, but when you start to get too close to people at work and rely on your workmates as your social life, then you're crossing some boundaries and you just don't know what's going to happen in the future or how that could create problems for you. So again, get a broad range of people that you know, work people, and remember, even if you're out, you go out for cocktails after work, that's fine, but don't go crazy and get drunk and say, this is where the problems happen. Have another group of friends that you can party with. Work friends, always remember there's a formality underlying your relationship, and this is key. So here's your integrity check. Is it legal? Is it a win-win? Oh, and legal can also mean, is it according to the code of conduct? Is it a win-win situation? Is everybody winning here? And would you do the same thing if your boss was watching, right? Or if it was on the front of the newspaper? Don't be doing things that you'd be embarrassed if it was on the newspaper, okay? Or got out on social media. I love this from Bob Marley. He says, the greatness of a man is not how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. That's who you want to be. You want to be the person with integrity and impacting people positively. Live in such a way that you would not be ashamed to sell your parrot to the town gossip, meaning, you know, your parrot's going to repeat everything you said, and the town gossip is going to tell everybody about it. So this is living with integrity. I want you to be a high performer, right? To be the person in the organization that's seen as a high performer. And so this is what we're talking about. And this is your aim when you get into a new job. We look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it starts at the very bottom with your basic needs, right? These are needs for safety and physiological needs. Then we move to the psychological needs for feeling good about yourself and feeling connected with other people. And then your self-fulfillment needs. So let's simplify this a little bit. This is what Maslow said. It was a hierarchy. You will not be interested in making relationships with people until your basic needs were met. This is why it's very important that people are paid fairly in their job. So they're not worried about, you know, how they're going to get to work. They can fix their car so they can get to work. They know that there's going to be food on the table, right? This is very important. And then people, once their existence needs are met, they can move on to building relationships with one another. And after that, moving on to what Maslow called self-actualization. Now, Robbins took this another step forward. So they said in existence, it's about certainty, uncertainty. Relatedness is about significance and love and connection. And self-actualization is about contribution and growth. So these are kind of opposites at every level, but every employer wants an employee that's growing and developing and unfolding and contributing to the organization, right? But we don't all live there. And so again, a sense of self-awareness. If you're not happy in your job and you're not growing and contributing, your boss is seeing it too. So you need to either get up there or decide, is this the right job for me or not? The worst case scenario is that people decide, well, I hate this job, but I'm going to stay. You know, people sometimes, They fire themselves and they stay on the job because the employer can't do it. What creates problems for everybody, right? So really make a good decision on where you're going to be and then work with integrity to meet the needs of your employer. Take every opportunity to grow. Be that employee who shows potential. Maybe you took a job to get your foot in the door and it's not your dream job, but there's another position within the company that you'd like. Ask your boss, what do I need to do to move into that position? And take it upon yourself to get the professional development and growth you need so you can make that kind of contribution. This is key to making yourself valued within an organization. So some of this comes down to your attitude, right? And there are 3 types of attitudes. One is a critic, always questioning, right? That puts the boss on the defensive. This is not a recipe for success. Or the spectator. This is a person that just kind of sits back and lets it all happen. This also is not the recipe for success. What you want to do is find yourself in a job where you're what they call a player. You're ready to go because your attitude is really key. But it's like an iceberg. When you are doing an interview, really it's very difficult to determine someone's attitude. But once they're in the job, then it all comes out, right? So the only difference between a good day and a bad day is your attitude. And guess what? You're in charge of that. Your attitude is like the price tag. It shows how valuable you are. And it's like a flat tire. If you don't change it, you'll never get anywhere. So attitude is key. Your attitude determines your altitude. And our lives are not determined by what happens to us, but how we react to what happens. This gets back to get yourself in a responsive mode, not just knee-jerk reaction to everything. This is really important. So these are some of the primary causes of a bad attitude, and every single one of them you're in charge of. Here are some ways, what are you telling yourself? We all have that little voice in our head, and it's important. Can you turn it around and make it more positive? Stop shoulding yourself. Pursue happiness. Seek comfort with change. Today's workplace is full of change, and it isn't just because of COVID. Change has been on the horizon and a primary aspect of work life in the last 20 years. And it's important that all of us know how to change. You might get a job, be trained for 6 months on the computer system, and then they get a new computer system, right? Your ability to move with that change is key. And value the relationships you have, even the ones where they may not be your friend out of work, you may not like them very much, but can you value their contribution? Because attitude is really everything. And the only person in charge of it is you. So here are 7 things you can do to keep your job. Positively separate yourself from the rest. Be the one that stands out, the one with potential. Strive to be the best at what you do. Establish yourself as an expert and a resource. Be consistent and persistent. Under-promise and over-deliver. This is key, right? We want to make people happy, but don't over-promise. Under-promise and over-deliver. And then people are thrilled. Keep confidences, right? Loose lips sink ships. Don't be a gossip monger. Keep confidences. Inspire others, especially those in power, to have confidence in you. And align your words and actions with the values of the organization. When we're at work, we have agreed to align with the values of the organization. So, this is what I'm going to challenge you to do. I need a couple more minutes. We're almost there. I want you to take the time to really reflect on what you want to do in your next job. Seek assistance from a career counselor. America's Job Center of California is an excellent place to go. Or if you're on some kind of social services, they have wonderful staff that are trained employment specialists to help you know your strengths and identify transferable skills and jobs that you may not have even thought about that you're ready for. Remember that you're interviewing the boss and checking out the organization and its culture as much as they're checking you out. This is key, because in order to keep your job, you want to make the right decision when you accept the job. And that's from experience, as I shared with you. And once you make that good choice of job, firmly commit to being the best self every day. You know, so it's work. Some days are not pleasant. Some days are not fun. But if you're committed to it and you can develop that strong relationship with your boss, you can make it through. You can do it. And again, every day is not going to be great, but you can show up great every day and be that positive force that Bob Marley quoted. So that's, from my perspective, again, behind the curtain of the HR professional. I talk with people all the time about performance and conduct issues. And so I see a lot of these things going on. And I want you to go out there and get that job that you're going to be excited about, that you're going to want to support the growth and development of that organization, help make you and your boss and your team look great every day. So with that, I want to thank you. And I want, again, to share with you that the handouts, which have a summary of this, are going to be posted on the America's Job Center site. And I believe if you're on here, you'll be getting an email about that. There'll be a recording of this presentation. And I want to give each of you my contact information, because I would love to hear from you. So it's Kathleen Markove at gmail.com. So you are welcome to reach out to me. And I would just love to hear from you. And I wish you all the best. I know you can go out there and become a very valuable, high potential employee in the right organization, and you can keep that job. I wish you all luck. And again, I would love to hear from you anytime. Please take care. I think there's another workshop tomorrow, and then I have another workshop in about 2 weeks. So keep an eye on these workshops. Good luck to you. And keep in touch. All my best. Thank you.